Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, How a Growing Chicken Concept is Driving Results Through a World-Class Experience, sponsored by Revel Systems. PDQ stands for People Dedicated to Quality, and the brand has launched a concept around chef-driven recipes and mindful ingredients typically found in a fine casual establishment. Teaching us how to build that world-class experience is Knott, Chief Operating Officer for PDQ, an award-winning restaurant chain with 62 locations across 5 states. Eric started with the company in 2010. We'll also talk to Chris Lybeer, Chief Strategy Officer for Revel Systems. Chris brings more than 25 years of leadership experience in the retail technology industry to Revel. Let's get things started. Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about Revel?
Happy to, Mandy, and good afternoon or good morning, everybody out there. Revel is a leading cloud-based POS platform. We like to call ourselves more of a transactional platform than a POS, since the POS is getting less and less popular these days. There's lots of other ways to order. We have tens of thousands of sites. We have hundreds of large enterprise customers. The big differentiators for Revel are we're a very open ecosystem type of concept. So we really actually encourage other third-party applications in terms of plugging them into our APIs and creating kind of a best-in-breed concept. We also have a very flexible and configurable solution that really can meet all the different needs of our new hybrid restaurant world. And we have a very, very strong order management system. Since we were built kind of in the more modern age, we built from the get-go to have all the different consumer digital channels, you know, whether that's curbside or online ordering or drive-through or in-store or kiosks or you name it. Those are all very native channels for us, and we handle that all pretty seamlessly. So we love this business. It's been a rough few years for our industry, but things are getting better every day, and we're happy to be part of providing technology that hopefully is driving value out to the restaurant enterprises. So with us today, we have Eric, as Mandy mentioned. Eric, why don't you start? Just tell us first about, not about PDQ, but about yourself, a little bit about your history and your time in your current assignment.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I've been with PDQ now about 13 years. Currently, I'm the COO here. I've held various roles throughout the years since inception, whether that be regional or director of operations, and always heavily tied to the technology side. And then previous to PDQ, I was with Outback Steakhouse for 13 years, going back almost, I guess, 25, 26 years total in the restaurant space.
Excellent. So good, lots of cycles of seeing how things are evolving in this industry. And I think it goes without saying they're evolving faster than ever now. So let's talk about PDQ, and we'll move to the next slide here. And I just want to say, you know, we know there's a chicken war out there, the chicken sandwich war, and it just seems like, you know, America's now the land of the chicken or chicken sandwich type of concept versus the burger. Somehow our burger fancy seems to be fading. But I have had the PDQ, you know, food offering, and it is top notch, everybody. So if you're anywhere in the zone of their restaurants in the Southeast, give them a try because they are doing great stuff. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about PDQ at this point, Eric?
Yeah, so I guess you set me up pretty well there. So back in 2010, 2009, our founders, Bob Basham and Nick Reeder, kind of from a vision standpoint, saw that the market was changing. You know, it was pizza and burgers for a very, very long time. And quickly, the chicken business became priority out there. So we opened our first restaurant in October of 2011 in Tampa, Florida. And I actually joined about a year prior to that. And, you know, Nick and Bob's vision for the company was to, you know, Bob coming from Outback and delivering, you know, fresh made items, wanted to bring that to the QSR plus space to where you could go through a drive-through and get things that were, you know, made to order. And we have open kitchens so you can watch the people making your food. And then with some differentiating things than your typical QSR or premium QSR is doing with regards to, we have face-to-face ordering where you go through the drive-through, and we don't have speaker boxes and things like that, or inside the restaurants, we've actually put a hand sink out front. What we noticed developing the concept was that the mothers would bring in their children and have to wait in line to go in the restroom and wash their hands before they sat down and ate. So we actually just plopped a massive hand sink in the dining room. But the idea behind it was, something that you could feel good about serving to your family through a drive-through. And all of our ingredients, whether it be our chicken tenders or chicken breasts, are hand breaded on site. Everything's made to order. And then, over the years, we've built out Florida, primarily in Florida. We've got 47 in Florida, about 10 in the Carolinas, 3 in New Jersey, and then 2 up in New York right now. So everything on the East Coast. But again, it's really, the vision here was great food, convenient, and feel good about what you're eating.
Good. That's great. Well, and talk about, we're gonna phase our way into tech here, but since it's on this slide, just talk a little bit about the My PDQ app before we move forward.
Yeah, it's funny you said something earlier about technology, and I've said this to a lot in the restaurant space. I think prior to 2020, we were pretty far behind in tech world in the restaurant business, and obviously with the things that happened in 2020, it forced all of us to speed those things up. And I don't know necessarily we caught all the way up with the times, but we've definitely made some leaps over the last 3 years. But 2 years ago, we rolled out our loyalty app, and almost 2 years. And then as of today, we're at about 290,000 downloads to date. And we're doing roughly about 12% of our total sales, are coming through that digital channel.
Yeah, interesting. Good. Well, we're going to lean further into tech here in a second, but before we do that, we've got a little survey question for the audience. So let's pop that up on the screen and see what everybody thinks about this. I'll read it while you're working through it yourself. Managing the many new digital channels that are available while also trying to improve the speed of service has been a challenge for everybody the last few years. Have you, in your establishments, implemented technology in the last 18 months to address this challenge, the speed of service or the digital channel challenge? So we'll give you all about 30 seconds to give us an A, B, or C, and then we can look at those results. And the theory is, I think, we all know the pandemic caught everybody off guard. It really did change consumer behavior. It certainly speeded up many channels that might have been coming into play, but speeded up the usage of them. And it's just now a much more interesting experiment to try to figure out how to keep your consumers happy in all these different channels. So there's our voting results. So it looks like almost everybody, 83%, have already done something in this area. If we had a follow-on question, we said, are you happy with everything? That might be a different answer at this point. 13% still need to do that. One person has got plans to. So, this is we're all kind of do a jumping off, and then I really want to hear a lot of your thoughts in this area, Eric, but I'm a big believer that we're just at the beginning of how much tech we're going to need going forward. Consumers are just pulling us in a lot of different directions. We're going to end up with voice ordering and lots of different things. And I think it's going to come faster versus slower. And so it's going to be really important to have a technology platform that allows you to keep plugging other things in and doing different things. So let's go next to start to talk about some of the things that PDQ has been doing over the last little bit of time. Let's go here, and then I'll go back to the other slide in a second. But let's talk about some of the things you guys are doing right now, Eric.
Yeah, so with, all in all, I want to start with the fact that, technology, to your point, Chris, is becoming increasingly more important in our business. But, number one, you've got to have a solid foundation first. I talk a lot with my team and even others in the industry that, technology, you got to look at it as an accelerator. It's not something you're going to be able to integrate into your day-to-day, and it's going to make a massive difference if you don't have that initial platform figured out, and so talking through with drive-through, in our situation years ago, we'd take face-to-face ordering, and it wasn't necessarily as efficient because of the space that's available with the building constraint of being able to take one order at a time and execute one order at a time. So with our business now, and obviously 3 years ago, was 100% of our business was going through drive-through, and it's now normalized at about 60%. With Revel, we have the ability with the remote order takers to now move along the line and take multiple orders at the same time, as well as earlier on in that process to speed up the efficiency, going through the drive-through. So, right now with regards to drive-through, it's all about, number one, speed. We have to get people through as fast as possible, but also there is an element of hospitality along with that as well. So if we can, shave the overall experience down with our guests, but then also create a little bit of time to put a personalized experience with the guests versus just what would you like, what do you want, and get you in and get you out, but also a little bit of hospitality throughout that experience. With dine in, you kind of mentioned it a bit with regards to the different channels and things like that, but the challenging part over the last couple of years is, as our digital business has grown, I think it was around 5% prior to COVID, and like I said, up to about 12%. So it's almost 150% increase over the last 24 months. It's trying to manage, how do we stay efficient at every revenue stream, whether that be coming through 3PD or direct to consumer through our app, or whether it be dine-in business or drive-through catering, et cetera. That's probably, to your poll question, one of the most challenging situations for us. And in our business, we don't throttle anything. Our I guess overall idea here with the guest is that regardless of how you want to eat with PDQ, you're just as important as the other. And I think that's important because you'll hear about different restaurants, throttling that third party or that direct app order experience, and it's not the same experience. I think that those individuals are just as important, if not more, because not necessarily going to visit your restaurant and pick that order up. So, but again, going back to just meeting the guests where they want to be met, and all of them being as important as the other. So we put as much effort into every revenue stream.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, you also mentioned, sorry about that. Hang on. Wrong button. You also mentioned that you got to get a foundation in place to start doing these things and to implement the stuff that you did. And talk a little bit about the decision you guys made. You said you felt like you were behind in tech, and then you did have to make the jump, and you moved to the Revel platform. Because one thing I still see in the industry, there's still a lot of legacy solutions out there installed, is that people they know they need, newer technology, but they're afraid of the level of effort and the time and energy and cost to do that. And, one of the things I try to remind people of is technology has leapfrogged itself. The cost of ownership of a solution is less than it used to be 15 or 20 years ago. And although rollouts are always a lot of work, they're still not as time consuming and not as hard when it comes to training and other things like that as they used to be. So talk just for a second about your decision to go to a platform and your perception of how it compares to doing it in the past.
Yeah, so I'll break that into kind of two parts. So when we realized pretty quickly that we needed a different solution moving forward. And I think to your point, you've got a lot of legacy hardware POS companies out there, and they were great for a long period of time. But the reality is that regardless of anything that you're going to do in any business, change is difficult, right? And it's not easy, right? But if you have your team on board and engaged in making that change, I think that's just the first step that you have to make. And not just throwing it on them, say, hey guys, we're changing this. It's getting them involved in the conversation And even so with the training aspect as we rolled it out throughout the restaurants. But, for us, it was number one was stability and having 99.9% uptime in the restaurant business. As everybody on here knows, the worst thing in our day could be that our point of sale system is down and we can't take orders, or we have to face that guest and let them know that we can't service them for that day. So number one was stability. Number two, I think overall was redundancy. And I think with what Revel's been able to do for us is create that redundancy in multiple ways. And then overall, the CapEx outlay. I mean, at the end of the day, from an expense standpoint, I can tell you right now with Revel is less than a third of what we used to spend with our legacy partner. And it also provides more redundancy where our old system, we had 4 terminals total that were hardwired. And today in all of our restaurants, we have 7 with 3 of those being remote. So the redundancy, being able to take one of your devices and use it in any facet that we would like was definitely a selling point. And then, going into the rollout, yes, I mean, any kind of rollout is difficult, whether you talk about food technology systems, getting those in place. But, one of the things that I loved about it was that, you run 100% Apple devices. And this day and age now, everybody is very used to, an app-based, whether it be an Apple or Android. Overall, they basically got your point of sale device in their pocket. I mean, at the end of the day. So, I felt very comfortable that with our team members overall, that they already knew how the device functions, because they use it every day in their own pocket. And, when we started rolling it out, I remember having conversations with team members, and they're like, well, Eric, there's no instruction manual that comes with when I download an app on my phone. So, I mean, this was very easy to learn how to do. And, so as far as the transition, and yes, any change is going to have some level of difficulty, but overall, I think that it was even easier than I thought it was going to be, getting this across the system.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'd love to hear our customers share that message, because I know if you did a large POS rollout in 2005, it took 2 years, an enormous amount of energy, an enormous amount of training. And I just want to tell folks that are holding off, it's not as significant as it used to be. So
yeah, and we actually, yeah, we took kind of like a step-by-step approach. We would roll it out, one day, one restaurant, for us at 62 units. It was I think we did 4 or 5 days a week, stayed away from the weekends, things like that. But we also invested in a training lab. If you remember, we actually bought an extra system, and what we do is we'd have the lab, go out in front of the rollout, so the team had an opportunity to do basic functionality, whether it be ringing in orders, just some type of muscle memory. So the day of the rollout was even that much easier.
Yeah. Well, I love that you warm people up, and just the way you engage your employees. That's also getting in front, I think, of the change management fear, which is really smart. So just like you are doing unique things for the consumers, you're doing that for the employees as well. So let's talk about some of the other things technology has brought. And, places that you're sort of taking advantage of now having a newer platform in place.
Yeah. So, another thing about the Revel platform is that you're open API, right? So that's always going to be a benefit at the end of the day. And we had relationships with other third parties, and it was great to know that they could integrate with you all, which we have, I don't know, upwards of 9 different integrations today into the Revel platform. So, but overall, the idea behind this, at least from my seat, is that the better we can support our team out there, and the easier that it can become for them, the more time and effort they have to focus on taking care of the guest or taking care of the food or whatever the case may be inside the restaurant, instead of having to worry about so many different, levels or different places to go to. And, with Revel, like we said, I mean, everything that we do for the most part is integrated through Revel. It's very seamless, makes it much easier for our team to execute and operate. So with, and again, I think that, involving, I'm probably going to say this too many times today, but involving your team, in either whether it be a rollout or even making it better. And I know it might be jumping ahead here, but even to this day, we have a channel that all leadership can post information on, whether that be with Revel or any other software platform that we have, where we can take their feedback and try and make things better or better for the guest, more importantly.
Yeah, that's great. And you've already talked a little bit about the training and that, how you went about that. And any other tips that you'd give anybody having, now that you've gone through this, that, if somebody else is going to be going through this soon, in terms of how to, like, I love your lab tip, any other things like that?
Well, we actually, so, here at the office, we also do have another lab set up as well, because we have a few individuals that go through and do a lot of testing for us before we even get it into a store. We do take our time with making sure that we fully vet and test any type of changes and things like that. So whether it's the training department, utilizing the lab here to go through and test things out, create training documents. We have full HRIS integration, with our LMS system, where the team can get not only load things, but also the team in the field can view those things, whether it's videos and things like that. So that again, all fully integrated. So makes it very, very easy for the team experience overall. I think though, the way that we did it was, when we first developed the way the menu was designed inside of Revel, we had really two things in mind. We wanted to keep the process similar to what everybody was used to, but contrarily, we wanted to make sure that as we moved to a new platform that has new capabilities, that we took advantage of that. And I remember the first few weeks when there was feedback going back and forth, the team, and I'd say back to them, I'd say, well, if we wanted it to operate like it did before, we would have just stayed with the old one, so I would tell you that, a tip or trick is to have a healthy balance between keeping it somewhat similar to what your team would be used to, but also trying to take advantage of the new technology that comes with Revel.
Yeah, I love that. Well, that's a perfect lead in actually to the next question, which is kind of what is on your roadmap going forward? What are you thinking about doing, and where are you trying to, you've, I think, probably only taken advantage of some of the things that you hope to do. So what's on your list in terms of tech stack going forward?
Yeah, so this first bubble, kind of just playing off of what I was just referring to, is evolving our menu flow. So we rolled out Revel, and we took that approach of keeping it similar to our old kind of ways, but also take advantage of what Revel had to offer. And then we let our team get used to it for 3 or 4 or 5 months, and then we went out and we recorded a lot of order taking and understanding how the guest was ordering from us, and then versus how the menu flow was set up in Revel. And what we actually realized is that our team was having to interrupt, the guest a lot through the order taking process because of how we had the menu flow set up. So we went, I'll call it, back into lab, and we reworked our entire menu flow to make sure that we would reduce the amount of questions that we would have to ask the guests throughout the order taking process. And it took us probably I would say 2 to 3 months to get that right. But we did utilize a lot of our team members to do that. So we had a small subset group of about 20 different team members across the country, part of that process, and they would make tweaks, and we would make the change in their establishment with Revel, and then they would send us more feedback the next day. And so it was a really fun process. But where I'm going with that and why it was important is because it ended up shaving around 4 to 5 seconds per order off of the order taking process. And when you start to talk about volumes, you increase your,
huge.
your throughput, exponentially grows. So we got through that, and I'm very happy with how that turned out. But again, giving Revel kudos, it was very easy to make those changes on the back end and get them back to that store to test that very same day. So I recall, team members sending me over communication at 8:30 in the morning one morning and making the change for before we opened at 11 o'clock. So that's where we went a couple months after we rolled it out. And quite honest with you, Chris, we still have that channel open today where, team members can give feedback to the management puts it into the chat, and then we evaluate the change, and we may make a change next week that you suggested today, but they get a sense of ownership at that point. These team members that are out there taking orders, they'll say quickly, hey, that change was made because I sent it in. So, but that's how we evolved the menu flow. And then this is very new, this geofencing technology we just rolled out a couple of weeks ago. And the idea behind that is one thing we noticed with our loyalty members and then our third party members is they would order their food and they would say that they would be right there to pick it up. And they wouldn't get there for about 15, 20, 30 minutes. But then we had a quality problem. So with this new technology, we're able to, if people opt into it, obviously from a privacy standpoint, we're able to track where they are and how far away they are. So that way we can make sure that they get the best possible product from a timing standpoint. So very, very new to us. We're only a couple weeks in at the moment, but so far it's been well received from the team and the guest. And I think that to your point with technology in the future, figuring out how technology can be an accelerator to every facet of our business is kind of where we're at.
Yep. Well, quick note for the audience. If you have questions, put them in the Q&A box. We're going to do those momentarily. So there's a couple great ones in there already. And I just want to compliment you, Eric. I work with obviously a lot of folks, chains in this business. I think two things you guys do exceptionally well, and you've mentioned it several times just in the 20 minutes you've been on with us. You involve your employees a lot in your decision making, and you measure things. When you're trying to solve a problem, you measure where you're at, you want to make it better, and that you work incrementally towards that, and you measure it again, either with your own internal resources, or sometimes you get third parties to come in and evaluate things for you, which I think is it's a very objective way to continue to try to improve the business versus kind of, sort of gunslinging and changing things around at corporate and, hoping for the best downstream. You're very engaged in a tight cycle that I think is super healthy. So kudos to you.
I appreciate that, Chris. And, the reality is the experience with Revel has been absolutely fantastic. I mean, I have had several conversations about, I probably tend sometimes to overextend, and I know sometimes your team's like this guy, Eric at PDQ, he wants to be involved in everything we got going on. But to your point, I think that it's a great way to get your team involved and provide feedback. And the ultimate goal for everybody here is to service the guest and the team that's doing it. So
great. All right. Well, let's tee up some good questions for you, because folks have got a couple about what you're trying to accomplish in your business. So throw those questions in the Q&A box. And who would like to feed us Eric his first question?
Okay, let's see. We've got a couple of questions from some viewers. How do you make sure to manage fast ticket times with made to order recipes? Are there any tips?
Yes. So, for us, we have obviously some historical data that helps us make those decisions. I will tell you that is a little bit of a gamble some days, that's for sure. And in the future, we are evaluating, predictive analytics. We've also had some conversations with Revel about that as well. But I think where we're going to go to get that to an exact science as close as you can is to get involved with some predictive analytics.
Okay. Which LMS platform does PDQ use? And for our viewers who are watching that might not know what an LMS platform is, could you give us a little bit more information about that?
Sure. Yeah, we are engaged with Wisetail. and LMS is learning management system. So essentially for us, we use that almost like an intranet. So for all of our team members, our corporate office folks, we all have access to it, and we have it automated and integrated to each job code. So let's just say that I'm a cashier. I can only see things that would be relevant to a cashier. So our training department here could shoot videos or post one-pagers, or our marketing department could put things on there, and our team could immediately see that. And all of that is accessible through your phone or tablet or computer, et cetera.
Does Revel provide or facilitate the geofencing technology?
They don't. They don't.
Okay. Okay. Is PDQ franchise or all corporate owned?
So we are about 95% corporately owned. We have 4 total franchise restaurants.
Okay. Okay. In your opinion, Eric, what sets PDQ's offering apart the most from a tech stack or menu perspective when it comes to competitors in the fast casual chicken space?
So what separates, I think the 2 or 3 main things that separate us is one, from a hospitality point. We spend a lot of time and effort in making sure that from an experience standpoint, we put a lot of effort into the hospitality component. I think a lot of the chicken space, you'll get what we call burn and turn. They want to get you in, out, and through as fast as possible. And then the other piece is, again, how much time, effort, and energy we put into our team. And I can go on forever about all the things that our training HR department does, and how our CEO is all about developing and implementing new things to take care of our team.
Okay. What is your strategy to optimize drive-through throughput during peak hours, and what impact has it had on your business metrics?
Yeah, so this one is good for this call here with Revel. You know, they were able to not only give us the opportunity to send out multiple people to take out orders like we talked about earlier today, which then provides the kitchen with the information faster, which gives them the opportunity to produce it even faster. So from an operational component, getting the information to the kitchen remotely at multiple orders at a time is one facet of that. And then, internally, we do utilize, drive-through time tracking, and my team is very, very competitive. So you'll have, inter regions, or even within the company, you'll have people challenging with each other on a daily basis on how fast they can get cars through, and how long they sit at the pickup window, et cetera. So, but from a metric standpoint, like we talked about, just the menu flow alone increased our throughput 4 seconds per order, per meal. Per meal ordered. So
Okay.
you look at our average check of, $15-16, typically 2 to 2.5 meals, each car is getting through around 10 seconds faster, just from that one project of the menu flow.
What third party handles the geofencing? Do you have any idea?
I do. It's Flyby.
Flyby. Okay, great. When you look back on your career, can you share an example of a technology implementation or consideration that didn't work out? Something you learned from?
Oh, yeah. That one. Yes. I think there's probably several.
Yeah. But you try to forget about them all, right?
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, and I think that question was formed exactly how it should be, and I won't get into the detail or the exact company, but I think what's important is putting as much effort on the front end of making decisions with technology as you're going to put afterwards. So whether or not it's successful, or you get the metric, so to speak, out of whatever it is, the ROI that you're trying to get out of investment into that technology, delivering the same amount of energy on both sides of the coin. So number one, did I evaluate that properly before I put it into place? And again, I know, Chris, you said it earlier, did I involve enough of my team? I think sometimes a lot of my mistakes in the past were not involving people or enough people in the decision-making process. And, there's just so much value in bringing together a group of people that work with any product differently at different capacities throughout the business.
What technology platform do you use for tracking DT times? What is your goal for your DT time?
So we use HME, and our pickup goal is to be under 45 seconds.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, I think that does it for our question and answer portion. Thank you all
Great.
for being with us today. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mandy. I just want to say thank you again, Eric. One of the things we pride ourselves on is partnering with our customers. And I think that's very different than a lot of our competitors. Some people in the questions also were asking, like, who else did you evaluate and about other companies? And that's sort of not the purpose of the webinar, but we go out of our way to have a long-term relationship. We see our customers many times a year, and we do things like this and collaborate on where they're going. And the fact that, Eric's got 9 integrations already. I bet in 3 years, you're going to have 20, different things going on in this solution. And, we're going to be there with you doing that. We're really more of a sort of a personal player in the space. We're a big enough company, but we're not so big that we're just trying to sell you a system and move on and let you use what's there. So we're going to be here as you innovate going forward. And I truly believe you're going to be one of the, really cool, high quality, growing businesses in this space. So thanks for taking the time today. Much appreciated.
No, thank you, Chris and Mandy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Everyone have a great night.